Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. It's the greatest time of the year. Iowa football is back. We are in game week. We've got our week one depth chart, and we've got the guy to my right. Coach Don Patterson is back with us for yet another season here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And Don, every year it's that excited, just jittery nerves for everybody, not just the players, the coaches. I'm sure there's a different level of excitement on that side, and you've experienced that side of it. But how does it feel to have made it through another off season? We know the college football season is special because it's the shortest of all the sports seasons, but we finally made it back to the final week of August.
It feels good to be back. This is very definitely the best time of the year.
It certainly is. The weather cooled off, and I tell you, this past Saturday, you and I, we're going to talk a little bit about that Iowa State-Kansas State game because I think it's relevant to this discussion. That was the first day, at least here in central Iowa, where it felt like football. I made that comment. It's just like, it was just something in there. And I'm like, man, it feels like football. And normally we don't get that for week 0. And it's going to warm back up. It's usually really hot for Iowa's first game or two. But man, we made it back to game week of week 1 for season 2025. We are talking about Iowa football's road ahead. And we'll look at Iowa Albany. I came out with my season preview. If you missed that earlier this week, you can check it out on the channel. I'll throw it up in the corner of the screen for you to click on. But Don, we previewed every position back at the beginning of fall camp. So we're not going to belabor that and just beat that horse dead. But we are going to talk about the 3 units and what we learned from fall camp, what we learned from the depth chart release this week, and maybe some questions that you have heading into the season, and then looking specifically at the Big Ten conference schedule and the conference schedules across the board, because there is a lack of balance, a lack of parity, and I think that's something that you and I think can be improved upon from the conference standpoint with the 18 teams. So we'll talk about that. But Don, to start with, give me an idea, now that players are out of their hotel, they're prepping for game week. Now we're in the middle of game week prep. What is this like for coaches? Is this the most nervous week you have as a coach as you're about to take the field officially? What is it like having gone through an entire offseason and finished camp, and now you're prepping for game 1?
I've always said, Corey, that August is very definitely the longest month of the year. The players feel that way too because they are tired of running into each other. They like to take out their frustrations on someone wearing a different colored uniform, and that all starts on Saturday, of course. I think there's a lot of anticipation. Invariably, you have a lot of guys that have not proven themselves on a big stage, and of course, they have that opportunity starting on Saturday. And you wouldn't define this as the biggest stage, of course. The biggest stage would be a game in Kinnick or a game on the road, for that matter, in the Big Ten versus a quality opponent. And, of course, this is a lesser opponent we have here in game 1. And in that regard, I'm sure the players are going to start the season with a lot of confidence that the outcome is going to be what they want it to be on opening day. So I think they're very comfortable with the way camp's gone. I know Kirk commented yesterday at the quarterback club luncheon. He said, I can't remember being any healthier going into a season than what we are right now. So we survived camp in good shape. A few bumps and bruises, of course, and guys missed some practice time, but it really was just precautionary. We're very healthy right now, and my goal for Saturday, let's win the game, let's look good doing it, and let's be sure that we have a chance to get those starters out before they're susceptible to injury. And of course, it's a contact sport, a collision sport, I should say. And there's always a chance of injury, even on the opening series of game 1. But you know where I'm coming from. It'd be nice if those starters could be out of the game long before the game's over. That's my goal for Saturday, is to win, look good doing it, and play a lot of twos and maybe some threes as well.
Do you think Kirk shares that goal with you?
Well, I hope so. We know in the past it hadn't always worked out that way. I do recall a one-sided game where we played the entire game and with a couple of weather delays with one quarterback. The backup didn't remember that?
I remember that. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'd love to see Hank Brown. We got to be very clear on this. This is an Albany team that Iowa ought to beat by 40. Okay. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Great Danes. They've had good seasons, Don. In fact, if you missed my season preview, check it out because I talked about this. They were in the semifinals of the FCS playoffs 2 years ago. You reminded me of this about a week ago. And so the program has had success, but they lost their head coach in the offseason. They lost their best players in the offseason, which is going to happen with FCS programs every year. You're going to have to rebuild because the best players at these lower level FCS programs are going to try to go up a level or 2 levels or 3 levels. And a lot of those guys did. They lost a guy to Kansas, lost a guy to Cincinnati, lost another guy to Power 4 football. So there's that aspect of it. They also, like I say, they got an interim head coach right now. It's their former OC. So my guess is they'll be maybe a little bit different offensively. Maybe there'll be some wrinkles that he throws in there because he's an offensive mind. But Don, this is an Albany team Iowa should beat by 40. So I don't think it's unfair for us to sit here and talk about, hey, who would we like to see in the second half? If the game is in doubt at halftime, that's not good. I mean, and hopefully if that happens, Iowa pulls away in the second half. But this is I go back to some of these performances from the likes of some of the recent Western Illinois teams. Illinois, Indiana. I'm trying to think. Indiana beat Western Illinois. Was it last year, like 70-0? I'm not saying that's going to happen against Albany, and I'm not trying to disrespect your Leathernecks, but like that's the same class that we're talking about for now. That's where I project Albany this season. They were picked toward the bottom of the CAA conference, which is not a great FCS conference. So that's my point. We don't even know who their starting quarterback's going to be. They're the guy who they expected to be their starting quarterback is out for the season, got hurt in the spring. So we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about Albany, but I do think you're right, Don. There's an opportunity to test the depth there early and preserve health heading into what is going to be an absolutely massive, monumental game 2 in Jack Trice against an Iowa State team who's going to be primed and ready, because that Iowa State team, we'll talk about it, will be coming off 2 tests, not just 1, but 2. It's a good FCS program they got coming into Jack Trice week 2. So let's talk about what we saw week 0. Iowa State defeating Kansas State over in Ireland. Close game. I thought Rocco Becht really played well in that second half, struggled the passing game in the first. We saw an interesting, I don't know if this was deliberate or scripted, but we saw Abu Sama in the first half, Carson Hansen in the second half. It was the tale of 2 running backs. Both looked good in their spots. One was fresh early, one was fresh late. And eventually Iowa State took down the higher-ranked Wildcats in the Farmageddon matchup. What did you see from Iowa State? It looked like a pretty typical Iowa State team that's maybe better through the passing game than I expected given some of the losses, but is still strong up front and is led by a really talented guy in Rocco Becht who threw some really nice dimes in that second half.
Yeah, you're right about that. I've always given Iowa State under Matt Campbell's leadership credit for being a lot like Iowa. They do a good job of not beating themselves. That's why I stayed after the game that shocked me. It was a sloppy first half, as we know. 2 turnovers on the part of both teams. And I realized the playing conditions were not very good in the first half. Thankfully, the weather improved second half. But what amazed me, they turned the ball over twice in the first half with fumbles. What I didn't know, in the entire season last year, they lost 2 fumbles. That's it. So they do a great job of not beating themselves. Also, here's a significant edge. Penalties. They had 1 penalty for 5 yards. K-State had 6 for 48 yards. And as we talked about before, sometimes there's a lot of hidden yardage in those penalties too. I don't know exactly how that holds up for Kansas State, but I don't remember any home runs negated with penalty, of course. But the point is, 1 versus 6, 5 yards versus 48, that's significant. That's a pretty big difference. One other difference also, 4th down conversions. Iowa State 3 for 3, Kansas State 2 for 5. And furthermore, a bad decision by K-State. You do not go for it on 4th and 1 on the -29
That was
when the
odd.
game's in out.
That was odd.
I mean, I can understand a lot of K-State fans would justifiably be upset by that decision because that was a very questionable decision.
I did think it was a bad spot. I thought it was a
I
bad
agree.
spot, but it's sort of like the old story that you tell about going for it on the quarterback sneak. You're right. Didn't you have a situation at Western where you snuck the ball several times, didn't make it, and then did you lose the game? But later
We
on,
lost the game.
someone
We
else said
lost the-
someone told you crossed the boundary, coach, but you told me after that game, or after, I didn't talk to you after the game, but since then you've said I would never do that again because it leaves too much in the hands of the officials to give you a spot.
Absolutely true.
From the Hawkeye of the Storm has always been built on you, the fans. That's why we're launching a premium Discord server to make your experience and your fandom that much better. This new feature is the most interactive way to connect with us yet. Inside, you'll get direct access to myself, Kyle Spence, and other key contributors. Join exclusive threads on game day, chat with us throughout the week, and be a part of the conversation like never before. Plus, we're rolling out premium perks, including select pregame shows, halftime breakdowns, and other exclusive content throughout the season, throughout the year. We're building this platform together, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Join our premium Discord service today for just $5 a month or $50 for an entire calendar year. Yes, $50 for 12 months ahead. Simple way to do this, folks. Go to the description of this video, click on the donate link for either PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, and make your either $5 or $50 donation. Be sure if you're doing the $5 donation that it's on a recurring basis, and be sure you label that donation for Discord. Include your email on there so we can invite you personally to our server. Yes, be a bigger part of the work being done here From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Join our premium Discord server today and interact like never before. Brian Ferentz and his Fresno State Bulldogs lost their debut to Kansas. It was not a good day for the Entz-led Fresno State team. That's a team with a program with a lot of tradition there, but that also happened week 0, so we won't get hung up on that too much. But let's talk a little bit about fall camp, what we learned about the 3 units, Don, because certainly we take it with a grain of salt. You got a couple looks at them, one being during the open practice at Kids Day, and I believe you were at practice at least one other day. And then, of course, we were there for Iowa Media Day and at the open practice as well. We've gotten to the depth chart, so we see some changes. We did not get a pre-camp depth chart, which was a little different than in the past. And I had come out with my depth chart predictions here a few days ago, and then we got the clarifying depth chart here heading into week 1, excuse me. But, Don, let's start with the offense. Mark is the undisputed starter. There was no question about that. It was an up and down Kids Day. It wasn't horrible. He threw a pick on a screenplay, and they had the fumbling issues, exchange issues. I don't think Kirk is too concerned about those problems between Logan Jones and Mark Gronowski. My guess is that's not going to be a problem. And running back is an interesting one. I was really surprised. That was one of my big surprises looking at the depth chart for week 1, Don, to see, first of all, no Nathan McNeil. And I know he's a true freshman, but there is another true freshman listed on the 2 deeps that we'll get to, a legacy kid. But to see Nate McNeil not listed there, and to see, unless this is just a typo, to see Kamari Moulton, and he's the co-starter, not with Jazz Patterson, but with Terrell Washington Jr. Right. I'm like, here's a guy that I didn't notice any. I don't even know that he played at Kids Day. I had to go back and look at my notes, but I haven't heard a lot about during fall camp. Terrell Washington Jr. is listed as the co-starter along with Kamari. And then on the 2 line, Jazz Patterson is listed as the co-starter with redshirt freshman Xavier Williams. So you got 4 guys listed at tailback, none of which are named Nathan McNeil. At receiver, I know people were kind of up in arms about this when the depth chart was released. Sam Phillips listed ahead of Reese Vanderzee. Those guys literally have a 9-inch difference in height. Vanderzee listed at 6'4", Sam Phillips listed at 5'7", and I believe he's a true 5'6" or 5'7". I had a conversation with him at Iowa Media Day. People are concerned about that. The offense is different. You're going to tell us why it's not that big of a deal to see Sam Phillips listed In fact, I think it's encouraging to see a guy with that speed, that type of production coming over from a Division I program like Chattanooga, who's listed now as a starter. The other receiver spots, you have Gill, Weegan listed on the 2 Jeep. No surprise there. Seth Anderson and KJ Parker also listed. By the way, those are the top 6 that I projected. So I got that one right. No Dayton Howard, no Jared Bowie, but it's those 6. And then on the offensive line, I mentioned true freshman. How about this young man, Lucas Allgaier, who's coming in as a pretty, good recruit, high 3-star, low 4-star recruit. He comes in, he's a backup now listed at right guard behind Cade Pieper. The other guard spot, you have Bo Stevens, Leighton Jones. Everybody wants to know about left tackle. Right now, it's they're leaving us guessing. They've got co-starters being Jack Doetzler, Trevor Lauk, Bryce George, the Ferris State transfer, listed as the backup to those 2. But I also think he will serve potentially as the backup at left guard. Center, Logan Jones, Michael Myslinski. Good to see Myslinski healthy finally, but Logan Jones going to be leading that unit. Jennings Dunker listed as the starting right tackle, and then co-starting at backup, Doetzler or Lauk. So whoever's not starting at left tackle would then be the backup, I would presume, at right tackle behind Jennings Dunker. Tight end, of course, Addison Estringa, Zach Ortworth, Hayden Large hit that one nail on the head. I know the coaching staff, Abdul Hodge, has a lot of respect for Hayden Large, so I'm not surprised to see Large listed along with those guys. So, Don, just major takeaways from fall camp, from what we just ran through at the depth chart. Maybe what are some of your bigger question marks as we head into week 1 and into the non-conference play that you want to see resolved?
I do know the coaches feel good about the backup center. He's had an excellent camp. As you know, he's been in the program a long time, and I think he'll contribute. I don't know if his snaps will be as much at center as they are guard. Maybe
I
he's
agree.
capable of playing guard also.
And I just want to say one thing real quick, Don, and you know what I mean when I talk about the depth chart. There may be a guy listed as a backup at a spot, but he may not be the real backup because it may be in a situation like at guard. I'll give you an example. Like you're talking about, Michael Myslinski is the backup. But would it be any surprise to you or I if he's also the backup right guard? Iowa's not going to list him at both spots as the backup. So they've got Lucas Allgaier listed, but I would not be surprised to see Myslinski be the backup at a couple of different places.
Yeah, you've always heard me say, Corey, among your top 3 at guard and your top 3 at tackle, one of those 3 needs to be able to play both left and right. And they can give you an effective 2 deep, even though it's only 3 players.
So other observations, Don, on the offense as a whole?
Well, I was pleased to see, and I know how Tim thinks. Tim thinks a lot like I always thought. And I'll just remind you what Hayden Fry used to say. Oh, by the way, you don't weigh or measure a guy when he crosses the goal line. They're all worth 6 points. So I'm not surprised and not disappointed to see numbers 2, 5, and 6 as our starting receivers. I think they all scare defense because they're capable of making big plays. And I feel good about those backups. I feel good about number 15. He's a good player. He's got things to work on. If it becomes a 50-50 ball, I hope that he is on the end of the passes because he's going to high point the ball and he might outjump some people and get a ball that a shorter receiver might not get. But those shorter receivers, never forget, the great thing about a shorter receiver, he really puts his foot in the ground a little bit faster than the taller guy. And it gives him a chance to be more elusive after the catch than anyone else on the field. And certainly our guys, I'm excited that Sam can do that for us. There are other guys that can do it too. You know, I like Gil. Seth is a really smooth operator. He's a nice receiver. If he can stay healthy, he certainly might have a big year. Let's not forget about our punt returner because we're going to use him as a receiver too. We just have a lot of good weapons at receiver. I'm excited about the improvement that they're going to be able to show.
I'm not sure I've ever heard you say in the history of our show, we got a lot of good weapons at receiver. I've never heard you say it, Don, ever.
Well, let me qualify. I will admit, most of them are pretty unproven.
Yep, we got to see it. We got to see it on the field. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that we seem to have more athleticism at that position than what we've had.
Is it fair to say? And I'll give some. Hey, we have to see it, but I'll give some credit to John Budmeyer because he is the wide receivers coach. Is it fair to say that so far, the exception being the most important aspect of this, game productions. But so far, you and I both like what Tim Lester and John Budmeyer have done with that room. Just,
Yeah.
the first year and a half, 2 years of Tim Lester's time here.
Yes, we're definitely tracking in the right direction.
And as far as tailback is concerned, are you surprised with Terrell Washington being listed as the co-starter and not seeing true freshman Nate McNeil?
I was. I think one reason you see him listed at running back is those receivers again are representing well. And now at this point in time, it seems like it's not so critical that we ask Terrell to help us as a receiver. Sounds like he's been told, you focus on running back because that's a better opportunity for you right now than receiver.
Yeah, and so far so good. I know they view him in a different light just because I think he's kind of a Swiss Army knife. And I think Nate McNeil might end up being a guy like that as well because he got really soft hands, demonstrated that at Kids Day. Let's talk about defense, Don, as a whole, because defensive line, a little bit of a surprise here as well. Not because I don't think he's deserving, but Bryce Hawthorne listed as a starter, and I've been hearing all camp that he was going to be a starter. I mean, I've alluded to that several times in the show if you watch the show, but I didn't think Iowa would actually list him as a starter just because I thought they probably had too much regard for Jeremiah Pittman. Not saying they don't respect Pitt, but Pitt's also been hurt during part of fall camp, had been recovering, I believe, from a procedure. And so I think he's back, but Bryce Hawthorne listed as the starter up front alongside Aaron Graves. Also listed on the defensive line, you have Max Llewellyn at left end, Brian Allen Jr., his backup, not a surprise there. Will Hubert, an experienced upperclassman from Omaha, is listed behind Aaron Graves. Jonah Pace behind Hawthorne, the former Central Michigan defensive tackle. Ethan Kenneth Merriweather listed at the other edge rushing spot. And then at linebacker, no surprise, the starter. I think there might be a little bit of question about who's the backup middle linebacker. They've got Jaden Montgomery listed, but I think Iowa, we'll see. I think that's going to probably continue to be a battle because they've had good competition as the at that spot behind Jaden Harrell. But Carson Child listed as the will linebacker. Jackson Rexroth also listed as the Leo, and then Landon Van Kekerix is on the depth chart. Cash is an interesting one because I've been saying for months, I've been saying that my understanding was from everything I had heard and been told that Zach Lutmer was going to be the cash guy. And then I continued to have people, and it sounds like other people in the media had been saying Cohen Entringer is going to be the cash guy. I think both guys could split some time there. I've been saying since day one that I thought Lutmer was going to be the cash, and you can go back and view those predictions. He is listed as the starting cash with Cohen at strong safety alongside free safety Xavier Wampa. And so we'll see. I mean, I think it will change, maybe depend upon formations. And Don, does that surprise you a little bit that maybe there have been some different views about which one of those guys is going to come down as the cash guy in places? I mean, how do you feel about that conversation, I guess?
To me, the skills for cash and strong safety are very, very similar.
Yeah, I agree.
So it wouldn't surprise me for one guy to take reps at both positions over the season. He certainly might play both positions. One of my fundamental concerns defensively, I'm concerned about our depth in the back end. I'm just concerned about having enough corners to be able to hold up over an entire season. You got to have a minimum of 4, of course. I guess I could argue maybe you could say 3, not 4. And again, that means one guy's got to be able to play both left and right. And it is a little bit different to play one side of the field versus the other side. Nowadays, you don't see many corners flipping sides. By that, I mean very few people have the mindset boundary corner versus field corner. You don't see it as much as you used to. They typically play left and right. And that's a concern is who those backups are really at all positions in the back end. I think we're very unproven in terms of depth in the secondary. We got to stay healthy.
I said the same thing. That's the one position I didn't run through. But corner, you've got Deshaun Lee as your right corner, and then your left corner is TJ Hall. So no surprise there. Jalen Watson, Shaheed Barrows listed as co-starters or co-backups, I should say, at left corner. And then the other spot, it's Watson and Godfrey. Watson's the third guy, it sounds like. And then it would be Barrows / Godfrey. And Barrows has had his ups and downs during fall camp from what I've been told. So I agree with you. Depth back there is a concern. I'm even maybe more in question about who's backing like Xavier Wampa up. I mean, I just think if you lose any of those top three, I should say not any of the top three, any of the top four at safety. The good news is I think Iowa has quite a bit of confidence in Cale Kolarek. He's the one guy who I think is going to be so important for depth. Like I don't know that I've said that in a long time. Backup safety might be one of the most important pieces as far as health, because if they lose him, I have no idea who would be. I think he could probably fill in. I don't know about if he's somebody that Iowa would be comfortable sliding over to the strong safety position. He's listed as the backup free safety, along with Intringer, who is listed as the starter at strong safety. And then I also think could share some time at cash. That just tells you that they don't have a ton of proven depth back there. So that does make me a little bit nervous. And then linebacker, just depth, because they just have no, like the guys who are starting, they're experienced, they're older, they've been waiting their turn. And like Carson Shire is finally healthy. And the guys behind them are just totally unproven. Like I have no idea what to expect from if Preston Reese or Jaden Montgomery or Nolan DeLong had to play. I just don't know what to expect from those guys on the field of play. It sounds like Jaden Montgomery's older, knows the defense really well, but a lot of unproven depth there. Special teams, I don't think there's much unproven on special teams. You've got Drew Stevens returning, Lou Groza, award candidate this year, maybe should have won it last year. Reese Dakin's back in year 2, huge leg. We know he can still improve in consistency. Caden Weegan, jet guy, he's coming back as the best return guy in the country. He'll be returning kicks and punts. And that was not a position listed on the depth chart. So we didn't see anything about holding. We didn't see anything about snapping. And we didn't see anything about returning on the depth chart. I have my snap guys as splitting time. I think Whirl and Ike Speltz will split time because based on what I've been told, Bryant Whirl is better on field goal snaps. Speltz is better on punt snaps. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right about one thing. We never worried about snaps in previous years. And of course, that guy's now snapping. I'm sure he's still with the Bears even now. He'll probably be their snapper in the fall. I don't know that he'll make the final roster, but I suspect he will because he's about as good as he gets in terms of reliability as a snapper. And of course, the Bears punters very used to him as well. So maybe there'll be a team in Chicago for the years to come. I don't know, but he's an outstanding snapper. And if you've never snapped before, you don't really realize that's a pressure position too. The first time you go on the field in a big game, of course, people just take snaps for granted, and they shouldn't do that, of course, because every now and then you'll see one airmailed over a punter or a holder. So we haven't had those issues around here, and hopefully we won't this year either. I do have a lot of faith in our special teams coach. LeVar does a great job. You'll find this interesting, talking about analytics. As you know, in recent years, the number one most reliable parameter for winning was edge on field position. With the changing Big Ten, that was not true last year. That percentage drops. It went from number 1 to number 16, I think it was. I'll tell you why it dropped. There were 3 teams in the Big Ten last year that lost on field position and still won 3 different games. And of course, they only played 9. We're talking about conference games. And I'll tell you who they were. A couple of them you would probably guess who they were. Yes, Oregon can win even if they lose on field position. So can Penn State. Those are 2 of the 3. The third one, kind of a head scratcher. The third one was Washington. I didn't see that, but here's the message to the team. It is not enough just to win by a few yards on average starting field position. You need to, I broke it into 3 categories: edge of less than 5 yards, edge of 5 to 10 yards, and then edge above 10 yards. Actually, if you had a slight edge, something less than 5, the record over the entire season was a losing record. So the message to the team is don't win by just 2 or 3 yards. You better win by something more than 5. I can't remember, 5 to 10, I think it was maybe around 70%. And then it really jumped up if you had an edge in starting field position of more than 10. At that point, yes, that's significant. You'll win the game just about every time. I think it was up in the high 80s.
Ty Nissen will be the holder. And then I think KJ Parker is the guy returning kicks alongside Caden Weegan, and then is the backup punt returner. So I think they've got the same 2 guys as their top 2 returning both kicks and punts, which are very different skill sets, Don.
Yeah, you're right about that. But I did feel good about KJ Parker. I watched him field punts in the kids day practice, and he does look like he's an ideal candidate to be long term to be a really solid punt returner.
Caden Weegan could come back for year 7. Did you know that? He literally has a year 7 if he wants it. People don't realize he's in year 6. Like, people think he's in year 5. He's in year 6. Could come back for year 7 because he was at Iowa Western during that spring 2020 season, then played again in the fall. And then, yeah, go back and look up his game logs. He's played, this will be season number 6, and he could come back for year 7. That's what he told us at Iowa Media Day.
Does that mean he gets extra tickets for the wife and all the kids? I'm kidding. To my knowledge, he's not very.
As Kirk would say, it's time to get the guy a station wagon, right? What if one dog could teach a child to never give up? Maya the Malamute, a spark of courage, tells the true story of Maya, the smallest of 10 puppies. The runt of the litter, she barely survived. Then, at just 9 weeks old, she was struck with a life-threatening illness. But Maya's spark of courage never faded. Today, Maya is the only certified therapy dog visiting children every week at the U of I's Stead Family Children's Hospital, the same kids we honor with the Hawkeye Wave. When Maya enters a hospital room, faces light up. And for a moment, children facing their toughest battles rediscover hope. This book shares her story, inspiring Iowa's kids to find their own courage. Every purchase or donation supports Maya's Spark of Courage Foundation, which provides these books and others like them to children during hospital visits completely free of charge. A gift of hope they can take home. Learn more or order your copy at mayathemalamute.com. Together, we can help even more Iowa kids find their spark of courage. There's going to be some battles and some storylines that work themselves out during the season, certainly. And week 1 will be a good, I don't know that it'll be a great measuring stick, Don, but at least it will be 70,000 people in the stadium against someone other than Iowa. You know, you're going up against someone other than yourself. But man, I think some of these battles may, fall over and spill over into week 2. But what I want to talk about next is scheduling, because you've brought up the lack of parity in the Big Ten. First of all, non-conference schedule is what the non-conference schedule is. We know Iowa plays Iowa State every year. The 2 other opponents this year, you have the thing with Albany. It sounds like that was because of a late cancellation from another FBS team from Florida, kind of late in the game with scheduling. So that's that. I don't think anybody wants to see Iowa play UMass and Albany, but it is what it is. That game week 2 at Iowa State is incredibly different because it's a really good Cyclones team. That is an incredible place to play a road game. And I know I'm biased because I'm here in Ames, but it's a very difficult environment. It's a great rivalry, as you and I both know, Don. But let's talk about the Big Ten schedule as a whole, because there's a lack of parity in this conference. You have teams like Purdue playing 5 of the 6 best teams in the conference, you could argue. And then you have a team like Michigan who plays 1 of the 6 best teams in the conference, or 1 of the 5. You tell me, Don. Lack of parity, and the schedules are released in December. I think there's a way you can improve that by releasing schedules after that first transfer portal window closes, maybe even right before fall camp, if that's not too late in the game, at least in the summertime. I would think you'd be able to at least wait until summertime before that next season, build some more anticipation. Just talk a little bit about scheduling.
Well, the obvious comment would be the NFL does it on a yearly basis. Why can't the Big Ten do it? I think it's a real issue. Let me tell you what I did, Corey. I looked, first off, I'll categorize 6 teams in the Big Ten as either favorites or contenders. There are 3 teams. I went off the ESPN top 25, and of course, all polls are a little bit different. But we have 3 teams in the top 10. I would classify all 3 as contenders. Of course, they're contenders for the national title as well. And you have an idea who they are, of course, in no particular order: Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. Everybody has them in their top 10, and ESPN is no different. We have 3 other Big Ten teams among the top 20, and you have an idea who they are: Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois. So those 16, incidentally, we would be the 7th team in some, I believe, as I recall, in the ESPN poll, we were the 7th team. Other places have us picked even lower, of course. But let's not get into that. Let's just focus on those 6 teams because I think most people feel, generally, a pretty good consensus of opinion, those are the 6 teams that have the best chance to win the Big Ten. Okay, that's fine. The obvious question is how many of those teams do all the other teams play? Well, to one extreme, you've got poor old Wisconsin. Incidentally, they were officially the 4th toughest schedule in college football this year. Believe it or not, Corey, they play 5 of those 6 teams. 5. And the average would be 3. We play 3. The good news for us, all 3 of them are here in Kinnick. So that's a plus. We get to play them at home at least. Poor Wisconsin plays 5 out of 6. They're the only team that played 5 out of 6. Other unfortunate souls play 4 out of 6. And some of those are the worst teams in our league in recent years. Purdue has to play 4. Northwestern has to play 4. Washington has to play 4. Rutgers has to play 4. And to the other extreme, as you mentioned, to tease our listeners, there's one team that plays exactly 1. That team, incidentally, Michigan. Michigan plays only Ohio State in the Big Ten. They don't play the other 4, and obviously they don't play themselves. So Michigan has a chance to play 5 teams that are right to the top 20. They play exactly 1, and they play them at home, incidentally. They do have one tough non-conference game. They're going to Oklahoma, but it's kind of hard to imagine, as Ohio State comes to the big house, kind of hard to imagine that Michigan's not going to be 10-1. And that's assuming they lose to OU, because they're going to be significant favorites in all those other games. Their non-conference, incidentally, other than Oklahoma, is pedestrian. One of them's New Mexico, I know, because it's one of my old coaches that's the offensive coordinator at New Mexico. But the bottom line, there's no parity whatsoever in the Big Ten schedules. And you can't convince me that it could not be done. I don't understand how this schedule is so unfair. Wisconsin certainly feels it's unfair, and anybody that doesn't like Michigan feels that it's very unfair too.
Now, real quick, just to clarify, we're not saying that Michigan doesn't play tough games like at Nebraska, at USC. Those are games they could lose, Don. I mean,
correct.
They could lose that game, right? You're going over 3 time zones to play USC. That's a losable game, but it's also a game they may be out. I mean, I don't know that they'll be favored in that game, but they probably will. Don't you think they'll be favored at USC?
Well, we'll have to see what USC does. They're a team, of course, that USC incidentally plays 3. That's the average, of course, is playing 3. USC is at Illinois. They have Michigan at home, and they have to go to Oregon. And here's what's unfair, too. The top 3 teams I talked about that are most likely to win the Big Ten, they don't even all play each other. Penn State plays Oregon and Ohio State. Oregon plays only Penn State. Oregon and Ohio State do not play each other. Among those top 3, you'd like to think that they each play each other, but they don't.
Yeah, and for Michigan to get, I mean, the month of November, Don, the month of November, I mean, my goodness. Purdue at home, Northwestern on the road, Maryland on the road. That's, I mean, I that's as weak of a November slate as I think I've ever seen. And, I mean, this is a Michigan team that they seem to catch all the breaks because they keep getting slapped on the wrist for the whole sign stealing thing, right? They are going to be missing their head coach to start the season, which is just, ironic. Do you have anything to comment on the Michigan scandal? I mean, you've made some things clear to me in our conversations.
Well, let me back up. I was on the honor committee at West Point, and if you're not all about fair play, then you don't deserve to even be part of college football. I certainly would state this. I think the national title should be vacated. I think those wins that they got that season should not count. That's as honest as I can be. Simply because they had a system in place where they were very definitely gaining an advantage. And incidentally, one of the culprits in the whole mess was a guy that graduated from the Naval Academy. So I'm not very happy with him. Incidentally, he's been barred from college football, as I understand it, for the next 8 years. But truthfully, Michigan should be penalized for what they did It's unfortunate because they had a wonderful team to begin with, but you got to play within the rules of the game, and they simply didn't do that.
How do you punish Jim Harbaugh?
Well, I guess it's hard to get your hands on him since he ran for the NFL.
You just said you're not allowed back in the sport for a period of time. Like, I mean, he couldn't return to college. I'm just saying, isn't there? You can do the same thing that you're doing with anyone else. Just saying you're banned from the sport for a certain period of time. They could try. I guess they could try to fine him. Could they send a bill to his front door? Can they find his email address and send an invoice?
He can afford to pay it if he got a bill.
Yeah. How do you respond to Michigan fans that say, everybody did it, everybody cheats? Quit. How do you respond to that?
Well, there's nothing wrong at all with trying to steal signals during the game. That's part of the game, right? That's why you see people shielding the signal guys. And of course, nowadays, the solution's been solved pretty much because now you got play callers talking directly to the quarterback in his helmet anyway. So you've eliminated a lot of signals. But at that time, that was not the case. To know the signals would very definitely be an advantage.
Yeah. So I just thought we'd add that a little bit in because I know there's a lot of Michigan fans that just adore me, Don. They just adore me. Ever since 2021, when I predicted an Iowa upset of Michigan, and I was wrong, and I admitted to it, they could not let that go. And so
they probably don't like me too much either then.
There's a lot of insecurity up in Ann Arbor. So anyways, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about Iowa's schedule. Iowa opens the season in the non-conference with Albany. Then they go to Ames to play Iowa State, return back home to play the Minutemen of UMass. They at a minimum should be 2-1. And I think that game in week 2 could mean a lot for the stretch of Big Ten play that they have coming after that. How important is it to go to Ames and win? Have won a lot of close games there, Don, in this series, and even in recent time, but they've lost 2 of the last 3 overall in the Cyhawk series.
It's been an unusual series because both teams have had success on the road versus each other. We've had good success knocking Iowa State off in Ames, even though they were all tough, hard-fought games. And they've done the same thing to us in Kinnick. Again, one-score games. It'll probably be another one-score game. That's not hard to imagine. And history says we'll find a way to have a point or two more than Iowa State. We can only hope so. It'll be a wonderful game. I hope we never give up on that series because that's one of the best year-after-year series in college football.
Week 4, they get Rutgers on the road, and that is a night game on a Friday night. So those are always interesting. And then before the bye week, they get Indiana back at home. But I do like them in both of those games. I'm not here making these grandiose predictions. By the way, I'm going to be coming out with my predictions here later on in the show. So I'm not asking you to come out with a record prediction, Don, but I will reveal mine here a little bit later. But I do think they got a shot at winning both of those games. So if they can steal one in Ames, hey, I mean, count up the games, folks. You're talking about an Iowa team heading into that first bye week that potentially could be 5-0.
Yes, and I do like, as you know, Corey, we play 3 of those top 6 teams in the Big Ten all at home. I like the fact that we play Indiana ahead of Penn State and ahead of Oregon because I think in terms of assigning difficulty, Indiana's probably going to be the easier game than the other 2. They're all going to be difficult, of course, but I like the fact that we get Indiana first. It'll give us a chance to knock off a top 20 team before we are assigned the challenge of knocking off a top 10 team. That's assuming they keep their rankings that they have right now.
And Kurt Signetti may make me eat my words, but if there's one team that I had to vote as maybe the most likely to be overrated that's in the top 25 preseason, it would be Indiana, with all due respect. I'm not saying they're going to be overrated. They may be really good. Maybe they'll be in the playoff again. I don't know. I don't think they will because they don't have the schedule they had in 2024. But I do agree with you to get that team. I'd rather get them before Iowa State. That's just not how the schedule shapes up. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick under the kitchen. Randy Engel, a longtime supporter of the Hawkeyes and from the Hawkeye of the Storm, has created so much licensed, authentic, original Hawkeye artwork featuring so many of your favorite Hawkeyes. From Brad Banks to Reese Vanderzee, from Chuck Long to Caleb Johnson to Spencer Lee, and the list goes on and on. Be sure you check out the Under the Kitchen art stand each year at Fry Fest. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook and check out the entire selection of signed and unsigned prints available at underthekitchen.square.site. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Like, if you had to rank difficulty, and I may do this here before we get to the first game, if you had to rank difficulty with each game, I'm assuming you would put Penn State at number 1, Oregon number 2, and then Indiana number 3, or would you go Iowa State number 3? Probably Iowa State number 3, right?
Well, yeah, I give a lot of value to playing Kinnick, so I think the tougher game would be Iowa State.
Yeah. So I don't mind the layout there before the bye week, and I've had some people kind of ride off that game at Wisconsin. I don't know how you do that because Iowa has struggled to play there for so long. Yes, they won there 2 years ago, but that's a difficult game. Penn State's a difficult game at home. Minnesota's a difficult game at home. Another 3-game stretch that could be very telling for the rest of the year. And I could see them winning any of those games. I could see them losing any of those games. And yes, I can see them beating Penn State at home. Not saying they will, but just your thoughts on the Nittany Lions, the difficulty going to Madison, and then rounding out with the Floyd game back at home.
Well, Penn State's loaded, as you know. Incidentally, Greg Gattuso, one of the reasons he left Albany, he's back at Penn State, his alma mater. He was a great player there in the early 80s. I don't know what his title is. He's one of those analysts that so many teams have nowadays. But who we kidding? He's probably right there in the middle of their defensive line. He might be a better D-line coach than the one they already had. But he's going to help Penn State this year. They're a very formidable team. They've got 2 outstanding running backs, as you know. The quarterback's very proven. They got a lot of experienced players all over the place. And it'll be a challenge to beat them, whoever you are and wherever you play them. It's obviously they got a good home field advantage also. And Penn State gets Oregon and Indiana at home. They do have to go to Ohio State. That, by most people's opinion, that's the showdown game of the Big Ten this year, is Penn State at Ohio State.
The good news for Iowa, I think, is that there isn't a portion of the schedule that is loaded more than another portion. Like, I think it's pretty balanced. They play the best teams in different sections of the season. And so that final stretch features Oregon at home, at USC, Michigan State at home, at Nebraska. So the bye weeks are spread out nicely. I think the most difficult opponents are spread out nicely, but Oregon is probably, at a minimum, the second most difficult game. And Iowa hasn't played great when they go to the West Coast. There hasn't been a huge sample size there, but they struggled mightily at UCLA last year. So that game at USC is going to be difficult. I do think it's good that that game's being played in the afternoon as opposed to at night, especially on a Friday like they had to do last year against UCLA. The Nebraska game is what the Nebraska game is. And the Michigan State game last year got beat pretty badly in that second half by the Spartans. It's an Aiden Childs quarterback who is athletic, I think causes some mismatch problems for Iowa. I do think Phil Parker will be more, I think that'll be a game he's got pegged. Let's not forget he played at Michigan State and he's a competitive coach. I guarantee you he wants Michigan State. He wants to get Michigan State back this year. So just give me your thoughts on those final 4 to round out the regular season.
Well, I do like where the buys are. Corey, if I'm wrong, Corey, I believe the first buy comes after game 5. So you play 5 and then a buy and then 3 and then 4. So we have a chance to catch our breath over the course of the season. And as I've already mentioned, I'd rather get over the Indiana hurdle before worrying about Penn State and Oregon. And that's the order in which we play them. Penn State, I believe, is sometime in October. And then, of course, Oregon's later than that, I guess. I don't remember early November 8th, I think. That sound right? I mean, that's right.
November 8th is Oregon. Yep.
Yeah. So it'll be a huge challenge, but it's a challenge our guys embrace. Our coaches have been through it many, many times. They know exactly what they're doing. You know, every game is going to have value. We'll have a different objective from one game to the next. By that, I mean our non-conference games, game 1, game 3, really, really important. Gain confidence with how we can play. We need to put them away. We need to be able to get our starters out and play backups. Backups need experience. And the beauty of backups getting experience, that means those starters are not getting injured when the game's already been settled. If the score's one-sided, get them out let the other guys play, keep them healthy. Let's be as healthy as we can be for the upcoming game, whether it be game 2 or game 4 after games 1 and 3.
What's the most important position for health on this team? Is it still quarterback, just given how important that spot is?
Well, I think Tim feels really good about Hank. I've been impressed with Hank when I've seen him. He doesn't have a lot of game experience yet, and that's, of course, where Mark has such an advantage. Mark, I believe, has played in 55 games. Is that right? That's a lot of college games been part of. Thrown for what, 12,000 yards or something? I can't remember how many, a lot. And Hank doesn't have nearly that experience. But I was glad to read the other day that Hank commented, he and Mark have a good relationship. I don't think people understand. You know, in the quarterback room, the quarterbacks all understand. And I've said this before, Corey. I remember when I was at UConn going around the room and saying, it's not about you, it's not about you. I'm looking at those quarterbacks in the eye when I'm pointing to them. Not about you either. Not about me. It's not about Bob Diaco. It's all about the team. That's all that matters. And we are a team of quarterbacks. And I'm sure that Tim's put that same message across and gotten it very well understood. We're all in this together. Only one of us can take snaps at a time, but we have to support each other. And of course, there's a lot that can be learned from a veteran quarterback like Mark. And I'm sure that Hank's been doing that. I know he has because I read it. In his own words, he said, I'm really grateful to be able to learn from Mark because Mark's got a wealth of experience and Mark understands we got to be sure Hank's ready to play too. If Mark can help him in some way, shape, or form, Mark's going to do that. That's what teammates do.
So quarterback is still you kind of went around my question, Don. What's the most important position for health?
Well, I'm more concerned really about linebacker and DB.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's probably where I think their healthiest spot as far as depth is probably receiver. And I can't believe I'm saying that. And then I'd put defensive line second. And after defensive line, tight end is, I think, in pretty good shape. I mean, you have 3 guys that they have a lot of confidence in.
I feel good about running backs, even if we have an injury or two.
That's a good one in the top 5. And then, I think then you start looking at like, okay, offensive line, how deep are they there? Do they have 8 guys that they'd be comfortable playing? And linebacker DB.
Talking to George, I think they very definitely are confident, at least in 8 linemen, if not 9.
Great. That's great. Phenomenal.
So,
that's massive.
Yeah, we'll hope that we can get through the season with all 8 of those guys staying healthy. But if we lose one, then maybe that 9th guy's going to be good enough to get the job done too.
So I'm gonna call an audible real quick here, folks. I said I was going to give you my prediction for the season. I may save that for a video. We may actually do that in a video. Don, do you want to give your season prediction, your regular season record prediction on this show?
Talking about Iowa? I don't care to do that. I don't want to see someone way or the other.
All right.
I just think our players understand, it's a marathon. You don't get too high, you don't get too low. You correct your mistakes. You do the best you can to be ready on each and every Saturday or Friday in the case of Rutgers, and you respect all opponents and you fear none. So don't take anybody lightly, and don't be in awe of anyone either, because last time I checked, they also put their pants on one leg at a time. So we have our work cut out for us, a challenging schedule. I've openly stated it's the toughest schedule we've had, at least in the last 3 years. But I think we're ready for that challenge. I really do. I think the players are in a good place. I think they understand that a lot of people don't think we're quite good enough to get it done. And that's the kind of challenge. Some of the most rewarding seasons I can remember are seasons when we weren't picked that high. I'll just remind people, we weren't picked high at all back in 1981. That's for sure. Nobody thought we were even a first division team in 1981. And we went to Pasadena. I'll take you forward to 1990. We had a tough season in 1989. 1 year later, we're back in Pasadena. Nobody saw that coming. I think we were picked 7th that year. So, yeah, we're used to being the underdog against a lot of marquee names. We're going to be the underdog again this year in a few games. That's okay. because point spreads don't settle games. Players do.
I want to ask you specifically about this game against Albany, because we've talked about Albany and just what they are, what they aren't. I mean, besides just staying healthy and getting some backups in there, hopefully by the third quarter, like, what do you want to come out of Saturday feeling, seeing? What do you hope we're talking about during our post-game show after the game? What is accomplished this Saturday, in your opinion? Best case scenario.
Well, the question, the tough thing about game one, I'll give you an example. As you know, Corey, we played LSU really tough when we were at Western Illinois. 1 week later, we played a lesser opponent. And the way I presented it to the team then, I said, here's my question for you. Can you play this Saturday night with the same resolve that you played last Saturday night? If you do that, the game's not going to be close. And at half, I think it was something like 49-0. I believe it was Tennessee Martin. I'm not trying to beat up on Tennessee Martin. The challenge was go out and play with that same ferocity that you had for LSU a week ago. Don't let your game drop to the level of an opponent that's not as good as you are. Have that same high standard regardless. So the challenge is against Albany, play like it's somebody in the Big Ten, and don't be settled for anything less. You only get 12 you only guaranteed 12 opportunities as a team. As an individual, of course, you're not guaranteed anything. So treat it as something that's so valuable. You don't want to sell it short. Have the mindset, I got to be at the end of the day, I got to feel good about the way I performed. And if that means it becomes a one-sided game, then that's the outcome we were hoping for. We recognize we're the better team. We still have to go out and prove it. But let's not settle for anything less than that. Those guys behind me, if I'm the starter, my goal is to be sure that you get playing time, not just a little bit, but as much as possible. And then, of course, the beauty of that means that starter that's so important to our success over the season, he's standing on the sideline, and he's not going to get injured watching from the sidelines. So hopefully we can get our most valuable players out of the game so that the backups can get in the game and then develop into a better backup than what they were the week before.
Folks, all season long, Coach Patterson and I will be live after the games. It's one of the greatest... this is going to sound like hyperbole, but it's not. It's one of the greatest ways to spend a Saturday after an Iowa game. Just hanging out here with Coach Patterson and myself. You can chat with us in the live chat. You can throw your comments up in the live chat, questions, etc. You can call in by means of your phone, StreamYard, so many different ways to interact. And Don, this is season 5 of you and I doing this. We've continued to build this community. We're approaching 12,000 subscribers on YouTube, and that number continues to go up. I guess final words here for today, because we're going to have a lot of time to talk here over the coming few months, just on the season ahead and being able to do another season of the postgame show. I know this is something that you enjoy as much as I do.
I do. Let me make one comment about Albany that's worth making. As you mentioned, Corey, the interim head coach was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach before the 2022 season.
And that was a really good offense. In 2023, it was a really good offense.
1 year later, he was elevated to associate head coach. Gattuso gave him that bigger, better title. And then as of March 4th last year, March 4th, 2025, he became their interim head football coach. I want to just touch on that interim word. Here's what he said. Obviously, the AD has said, we're going to make you our coach. We'll get through the season, and then we'll decide. He did not give him the title of head football coach, interim head football coach. Here's what Ambrose has publicly stated. He wants his team to be the most aggressive team in college football. Most aggressive team in college football.
They're going to attack. They're going to attack those boundaries, Don.
I think what that means is that they do have more experience on defense too, incidentally.
Yes, they do.
Does that mean they're going to go 0 and bring 6? By that, I mean a straight man coverage and bring 6. I think they'd be foolish if they did that, because then if there's one missed tackle, of course, it might be a touchdown. And their defenders don't match up that well with our receivers across the board.
Let's not forget, he is an offensive coordinator. So I think that means more about how they're going to approach the offensive side of the ball. I think they're going to take shots and try to attack the weakest position on the football field for Iowa, and I think a lot of people think that's corner.
Yeah, I think you're right. It probably relates more to their play calling on offense. Defensively, they'll probably be more conventional than that, but we better be ready for anything and everything when it comes to Albany offense, because why wouldn't you? That's exactly what I would do. I'd throw the kitchen sink at Iowa. Things I always wanted to try and didn't have the guts to try, I might try them against Iowa, because nobody expects us to win the game anyway.
And this is his audition, Don. This is
right.
Ambrose's audition. If he goes
He's
out there,
try to find a way to win the job.
Yeah, I mean, what if he goes out in there and shocks the world and beats Iowa? Let's hope that doesn't happen. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, and I don't think it will, but that's what his mentality has to be. Like, go out there and shock the world and go win the job, because you're right. He's not been named the permanent head coach.
Here's one that caught my attention last year. Game 12, I believe it was game 12 for them. But it was for sure. They were playing Hampton, which is a conference rival. But here's what really got my attention. Late in the first half, they're down 28-0 to Hampton. The final score that day, Albany 41, Hampton 34. So that tells you something about their character. They didn't give up. Most teams, if you're down 28, it's over, right?
They scored 41 points. How long did it take for them to score 41?
They got a touchdown before the half, and they scored 34 in the second half.
34 in the second? Wow. That's again, this is, I know they bring a lot more back on defense, Don, but this is an offensive coaching staff now, led by their head coach. So it's
I do know the projecting quarterback is a transfer from Buffalo also. Now, obviously, he's not good enough to be the starter at Buffalo, but maybe it was a close battle at Buffalo. I don't know where he was on the depth chart. He's at least a veteran quarterback. He's been around college football for quite a while. He's never played in a stadium like Kenny. He's never heard a crowd like we have. So that'll be an adjustment for him. And that's part of the challenge to the fans. Okay, we don't need a lot of noise just for Penn State and Oregon and Indiana. We need a lot of noise this Saturday, too. Let's be sure we have the home field advantage that we always want to have. And that means we cheer loudly regardless of who we're playing.
So, Don, I'll ask you the question again. How excited are you for postgame again? You're excited to be on with the fans after every game. And, this is...
Well, you heard me many times, Corey. I'm just so grateful to the support we had in Coach Fry's 20 years. And for that matter, for all the support that Kirk's gotten in all these years since. And as you know, I always openly state this. This is just my way of saying thank you to the fans, to make myself available after the games. I have a passion for football, of course. Always enjoy talking with you about it, because you know what you're talking about too. And I know it's important to both of us, Corey, that we give the listeners something that's worth listening to. And based on the way the show's grown over the years, I think we're seeing good results, as only we hope to see them. That the fans enjoy hearing our spin on the game. And I say our spin, it's just honest assessment. That's all it is. Sometimes, this, I'm a fan through and through for Iowa football. But again, I was on the honor committee at West Point. I'm not going to lie with my opinions. I'm going to always be supportive. But I'm going to be honest too. If we fall short somewhere, I'm going to probably acknowledge we got to be better in this particular spot. We didn't get the job done. I'm going to be honest in talking about the game, and I know you will be too. And I think that's what our fans want us to be, is to be honest with what we saw and to share with them our expertise and our observations from one game to the next.
And one of the things that makes the show great is you can interact with Coach Patterson, ask him questions. And Don, I don't think there's ever been a question that you've said, I'm not answering that. Right. So Don is very accessible to the fans, and I try to be the same. So folks, if you have not attended one of our post-game shows, we're live shortly after every game. And even if Coach Patterson isn't yet back to his home base from Kinnick, I will be live almost immediately. Plan on being at the Cyhawk game here in Ames, Don. Plan on maybe being at another road game. We'll see which one. They play a couple of road games that are within very short driving distance from central Iowa. So we'll see on that. But Donna, it's just going to be another fun season. I appreciate you taking all the time talking about camp, talking about Kids Day, and not just talking about the season as a whole. We ran through almost everything. And folks, if you haven't yet seen, check out my preview for Albany. It was released earlier this week, and I'll also be releasing my official season prediction, schedule prediction, record prediction here in the coming days as we approach game one. Don, it's going to be fun. We're going to talk analytics. We're going to talk performances, stats. We're going to have a new feature where we talk about the biggest play of the day, the one that maybe in some cases may have set the tone for the rest of the game or changed the game. We'll have our player of the game segment, which is always fun. So lots to come, and the season passes by really fast. That's the only thing that I don't like about college football is it goes by way too fast. So we'll savor every moment of it. But thank you for helping us out preseason, and we'll talk to you on Saturday.
Looking forward to it, Corey.
For Coach John Patterson, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm, folks. We will talk to you live after Iowa-Albany this Saturday, 5:10 p.m. Central Time, the kickoff. If you're not in person, it'll be televised on FS1, and then log in right following the game here on YouTube from the Hawkeye of the Storm for Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson.